It's a pleasure to be here in Jakarta. I came accepting an invitation to be the keynote speaker at the ASEAN Literary Festival. Although I am supposed to be the keynote speaker, I prefer to call it a conversation about peace and freedom. Of course, the issue of peace and freedom are not abstract concepts. This is part of people's daily lives in Indonesia, in Timor-Leste, in India, in Brazil, anywhere in Europe, anywhere, we don't need an academic doctorate to elaborate on this topic because it is our daily lives. Individuals know in their heart when they are at peace, when they are living in peace and in freedom. You can be in a country that is absolutely peaceful because there is no war, whether conventional war involving 2, 3 different countries, or internal war like civil war. You might not have any of that, but it doesn't mean that people are living in peace because they are not feeling safe. If you don't feel safe, you are not living in peace. You are afraid. So it's not an abstract concept. And academics always find a way how to elaborate a 400-page treaty, thesis on peace and freedom. But my personal experience, your experiences here and anywhere, we know exactly what is absence of peace, what is absence of freedom, what is real peace, what is real freedom. It's also very psychological. When you are in a society, in a country, you can sense wherever you are. And I visit Myanmar in 2005. I was foreign minister at that time. And you just need to observe the people. And I was very surprised, shocked, sad. I never saw such unhappy people. You look at their eyes, their faces, and you can understand there is no peace here, no freedom here. You don't have to ask. But other situations, people are, you look at the way people react in a town, in the city, in a village, you immediately sense. So I will talk specifically about the experience in my country, Timor-Leste, the challenges of building and consolidating peace, democracy, rule of law, which is not different from the challenge experience Indonesia faced from 1949. And when I was president, I launched several programs in my country. It's called Dili City of Peace, the concept, a completely integrated concept where I use sports initiatives, music, cultural initiatives, anti-poverty initiatives in order to create hope, faith, and this way you consolidate peace in the country. And it is not a one-off exercise. And peace, you don't declare it. You build block by block. in the homes, in the schools, in the communities. And peace goes hand in hand with freedom, with real freedom. Freedom to think and to express your thoughts. Freedom to challenge official concepts or policies or decisions, but freedom also to accept the other side. I did a lot of these activities in my own country on how to build end conflicts, reconciliation, build peace, consolidate democracy, and still not over. It will take a long, long time for people to have a culture of peace. For instance, how can you achieve a situation where any individual anywhere in Indonesia, anywhere in Indonesia or in Timor-Leste or Thailand or Philippines or India, when you are angry with something, very angry, your first reaction is not to pull out a knife, a gun, or a stone. How? And that I mean culture of nonviolence, culture of peace. How can you reach a situation where a society act like human beings supposed to act rationally and not driven by emotions and anger? How you control your anger and emotion? Yes, it's natural you're angry, but how you manage, you control it. And so that's not a simple exercise. So anyway, that's more or less my conversation, my topic, and also to salute, to thank the third ASEAN Literary Festival, and to ask, to make a request. Because I always wanted to have a literary festival in Timor-Leste, a film festival in Timor-Leste. So maybe you can help us launching literary festival in Timor-Leste. That is also because there's a lot of people still speak Bahasa Indonesian, maybe 40%. And Indonesian writers, poets, journalists are very well known in Timor-Leste. In Timorese youth, they watch Indonesian television every day. Every day. Two things that I always wanted to do. A literary festival that it's not only Timorese, because we don't have an abundance of literary creation, but Southeast Asia literary festival, film festival, music festival, Indonesian music groups, extremely popular. Every time a group goes there, I'm not familiar with the modern pop groups of Indonesia. I know only, well, two big names, Christine Hakim, very famous in Timor, very respected, and Chris Dayanti, who was stolen by Timor-Leste. And but every time they go to Timor-Leste, there are tens of thousands of youth attending their concerts. So that's my request to you, because when I accepted to come, I immediately thought, okay, I will ask them also to help doing a festival in Timor-Leste. I thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, Pak Horta.
Mr. Horta, welcome. You speaking about peace, very nice word about freedom and reconciliation. And now you are in the middle of this great festival. that are facing those kind of issues, particularly about 65 crimes. My specific question for you is about what the experience of your fellow citizen Timor-Leste people about the Truth Commission, CAVR, whether Indonesia should establish that kind of commission, and how do you address it for Indonesian people and also the government?
Immediately after the 99 referendum, and particularly after independence in 2002, we, the leaders of Timor-Leste, led by older brother Shanana Guzmão, who was in prison 7-8 years in Sipinang, decided that we should leave the past behind. And leaving the past behind doesn't mean you forget. You honor the victims, their suffering, their memory, but we must live on towards and looking at the future. For us, Timor-Leste and Indonesia were victims of the Cold War. The reason, or one reason, maybe the main reason why Indonesia intervened in Timor-Leste in 1975 had to do with the Vietnam War, the Cold War, the fear of communism, and these were real issues. And often in history, these fears, these perceptions led governments to undertake policies, and they did. Then in 98, 99, Indonesian people, students, went to the streets, and Indonesia once again was freed, liberated. It was through the actions of Indonesian students, Indonesian people, that also helped Timor freeing ourselves. And we, as leaders of Timor-Leste, we understood the difficulties of transition in Indonesia from 98, 99 into building a new Indonesia, stable politically, building the foundations of a functioning democracy, etc. And so we decided that we will not push for an international tribunal. We resisted strongly the advice, the pressure from many in the world. We were even criticized. I was criticized by many in the international community, our NGOs, our civil society, and doesn't mean they were not right. No, they were right. You are right in terms of high moral ground. This is an issue of principle. But for us, it is also an issue of policy. What is the best for Indonesia? What is the best for Timor-Leste? And I said 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I have a full trust in the Indonesian society. Slowly, gradually, democracy will consolidate in Indonesia. Well, 10, 15 years later, Indonesia and the Philippines, in my view, are the two freest ASEAN countries. Is democracy in Indonesia perfect? No, it's not perfect. Is democracy in the West perfect? No, you need $1 billion to be elected president in the United States. And is democracy perfect in Thailand, in the Philippines, in Brazil? Maybe only in Sweden, Norway, Finland, these are perfect democracies, because nothing happened there. And but Indonesia is dramatically different. And we leave it to the Indonesian people when and how to deal with their own past. We in Timor-Leste, we created a Truth Commission, and we have a report, 10,000 pages, 4 volumes in 4 languages, Tetum, Bahasa, English, Portuguese. And this we turn into part of school curriculum. But when you deal with this, not to remind of the tragedy, but as a pedagogy, first, to honor the victims. Second, as a pedagogy on against wars, against violence, so that it never happen again. So that's always the difficulty. When you talk about history, you talk with a sense of responsibility in order to educate people against violence, so that never again this kind of violence happen, or you manipulate to serve your political interests of the moment. In our case, we say no. This is not to create hatred about anyone. We have to be careful. This is a pedagogy on non-violence, on peace. And so that's our experience. And in 15 years, since almost 50 since independence, we never prosecuted a single East Timorese who were on the other side. Not one. And we don't have a single political prisoner. We don't have our newspapers open easily like you open a restaurant or a kiosk. Small city, small town, we have, I think, 5 daily newspapers. We have 4 televisions, not channels, different owners. I lost count of the radios, and the government doesn't even control the license. You know, someone decides to open a newspaper. We are not very efficient, so you open a restaurant, you open a newspaper, it's the same thing. So absolute freedom in that regard. So that's what we try to do. Our justice system is still very weak. But they assert in themselves, fighting corruption, fighting abuses. So that's our experience. And Indonesia experience is similar, but also different. And so I don't lecture anyone, but we learn from Indonesia. And many in the region, like Myanmar, should learn from Indonesia. How? A lot of similarities. The transition in Indonesia to democracy and the current transition in Myanmar to democracy. And that's where the lessons of Indonesia is more adaptable, applicable.
You said that when you visited Myanmar, you saw very unhappy people in their eyes because they have no peace or freedom. Now that you visited Indonesia, what do you see in our eyes? Do you see we are happy, and do you see we have peace and freedom?
Indonesia is a very interesting country. Even during so hard a time, people always smiling. And Indonesians are resilient survivors. You know, the first time I came to Indonesia was in June 1974. I didn't stay in a Borobudur hotel. There are only 2 big hotels in Jakarta at that time, Hotel Indonesia and Kartika Chandra. I stayed in a small lodgement, probably no longer exists. I pay less than $10 a day. Very good service, good food, clean. And how did I travel in Jakarta? On a scooter of a journalist, Hari Kawilaran of Sinar Harapan. He was the one who took me everywhere. I also traveled in becak before they were, I think, thrown into the river. I heard, a mayor at the time decided to throw all the becak into the river because they were quite a nuisance. But they were very helpful when you don't have money. So I know Indonesia from that time. Even that time, Indonesia was never like Myanmar. Even during the Suharto era, there were hundreds of NGOs. There was this non-governmental group of NGOs that meet every year. And we always contact them. There was always a Tempo magazine that was like dissident, that sometimes got closed down by Suharto, then reopened. Today, situation even dramatically different. And back then, I don't think I would be sitting here and talking with you. I haven't been to many places in Indonesia, mostly Jakarta. Even Bali, only usually transit. And but I've been here many times since 98, 99, and I can witness the transformations in every sector. And Indonesians should feel proud of what you have achieved. Indonesia today is highly regarded in the region and in the world. And respect from the international community doesn't come because of your size, 250 million, or your wealth. Respect from the international community, prestige, credibility, influence comes from the way the country is governed, its stability, its tolerance, inclusive policies. So in that regard, Indonesia is very different, very impressive. Sometimes, actually often, relationship between countries is only official level. There is no real relationship between the people. In regard to Timor-Leste and Indonesia, partly because of the history, people-to-people relationship is exceptionally good. You see it in Indonesia, thousands of Timorese studying in Indonesia, thousands of Indonesians living in Timor-Leste. You probably don't know. At least 7,000 officially registered. From bicycle repair to doing managing warung. I often go to those Indonesian warungs in Delhi. Two big business, construction business, import of equipment like tractors, hand tractors, cars, trucks, etc. The trade, about 70 to 80% of Timorese imports are from Indonesia. In 2015, 40,000 Timorese travel, primarily to Indonesia, Singapore, Australia, but mostly to Indonesia. There are 3 flights a day, Bali, Delhi, Delhi, Bali. 3 different airlines, almost all of them always full, and majority Timorese and Indonesians. So relationship is very good. So those who wanted to join Indonesia, some went back to Timor-Leste. They are there, even in the government, in the parliament. Others stay in Indonesia. And many are in very senior positions, in the police, in the military, in diplomacy. And I'm impressed with the way Indonesia continue to treat so well the Timorese who stayed behind and serve in the Indonesian army. Sometimes in other countries, if you are from the former so-called enemy, even if you always show loyalty, they are suspicious. Well, look at what the US did to the Japanese who lived in the US. 60,000 put in camps, in detention. And so we see all of this, and so after independence, we extended a hand of friendship to Indonesia. Indonesia turned around and accepted, and walked back, and we met halfway. And that shows also Indonesia's maturity, statesmanship, that you don't keep angry about those who decide to leave. So that's why it built this strong relationship. Many in Asia, in the world, they are surprised when I explain to them about the reconciliation between Indonesia and Timor-Leste. They're surprised when they hear Indonesia defending Timor-Leste membership in ASEAN, etc. So this is a model for countries to follow. For those who decide to stay in Indonesia, they're happy, they are there, most of them, in good positions. Others not so well, they live still in poverty in West Timor, but they decide to stay there. The Indonesian government has helped to the extent they can.
Jadi ini adalah the third ASEAN Literary Festival, dan pada tahun ini kami mengangkat tema The Story of Now. Tema ini dilatar belakangi oleh keinginan untuk menghadirkan permasalahan-permasalahan terkini, untuk melihat bagaimana relevansi sastra, bagaimana relevansi para penulis, para sastrawan dalam permasalahan-permasalahan dunia hari ini. Dan tentu tanpa terlalu banyak dicari-cari, kita semua tahu gitu, apa misalnya permasalahan kita sekarang ini, human right, kebebasan berekspresi. Nah, terkait tekanan-tekanan beberapa pihak untuk membatalkan berbagai acara itu, terutama yang terkait dengan isu 65, lalu juga isu LGBT, dan kemudian isu Papua.